we went to Providence. The kids and I went to Providence to stay with Mother Pratt. And it was, it was hard because we were in a state of flux, and the world was beginning to come together again. But it was hard. And Jim, we used the telephone a lot, which was pretty expensive when we did it. Jim went to live at the Union Building, had to have some room. Well, there was nothing available for a family at that point. And we had no car, and we were it was not a happy time.
No.
It was a very unhappy time. And finally, after about 6 weeks, I think it was, I said, Jim, I can't take it anymore. I'm coming out on the train.
With the 2 children?
With the 2 kids. So I packed us up and we went out to the university. And of course I didn't know what I was getting into.
Mm-hmm.
And being a down east person, this was going to be pretty tough. My mother had a fit. Where are you going? I can't even find it on the map. But we got there by train, and Jim came to Indianapolis on the bus and met us. Then we got on the bus going back to Bloomington, because Indianapolis is about 50 miles away from Bloomington. We got off the bus, and I could smell nothing but, I didn't know what it was, a haze of soft coal. It was an awfully acrid feeling. I thought, what in the world is wrong with the air? Oh, honey, they burn soft coal here, and it does permeate. Well, that was number 1. Then we all had to go to one room in the Commons at the university, which was where we lived for a few weeks. Martha, who was 2 years old, dropped a tray every meal. It was just, and I don't know how Jim stood it, because I was nasty, I really was. But he knew. And finally, one of the deans came to us at the breakfast table one morning and said, I have a graduate student who's going to be going up to Michigan, and they'd have a little house that they've rented on Hunter Avenue. It's not much of a house, but it's a house. Would you like to go see it and maybe move out of the Union Building? Wow.
You were out of there.
We were out there, lickety-split. It wasn't a very nice house. And our furniture had been moved from Washington into storage somewhere. We didn't know where it was. So but when we got into that little house, we had the furniture moved in. And we were there for, I think, a month or 2. And finally, one of the women that I had met, the basketball coach's wife, Mrs. McCracken, said, you know, I think if you go see this Mr. Chris Donato, he's built some very nice houses on First Street. And there's an empty lot that he owns. You might go and see if he would build you a house. Well, that was a good chance. So we went and called on him, banged on the door, and he looked at us. He said, are you a veteran? And Jim said, yes, I am. Well, if you go to Indianapolis and get a permit, which you have to be a veteran to get it, and get a permit, I'll build your house. So he had built these limestone houses. They aren't very attractive, but they're adequate. Limestone house. He had a whole list of 3 or 4 or 5 of them on the street. But we were so grateful for anything. So Jim got the permit, and this was the end of maybe April, early May. And at that point, was nearly summertime, I put Martha in a little nursery school, and Debbie had entered grade school. David had entered grade. So they were all set. They were doing quite well. I was not doing well, but they were doing well. And Jim said, well, I know. Why don't you go to Maine with Mom and Dad and spend the summer, and the house will be ready when you come back. So that's what we did. We got on the train again, and
Just you and the two children?
me and the two children, and we took the train to Portland, and Dad met us, and we spent the summer with,
This is the Pratt.
yeah,
Yeah.
so we spent the summer with them in Oswego Lake. Kids loved it, was happy. And Jim came as soon as summer school was over, so we had a month there together, all of us, before we went back to Indiana.
And was your house ready?
And the house was ready. And it was wonderful. It was great. So we moved in the house. And by that time, they were making cars again. So we got a car.
Now, what about the air situation and the coal? Did that continue?
No, actually, people began to put in, what we have, gas furnaces.
Okay.
So it was much.
So it sounded like when you got back, your life started settling.
Life started much better. And the faculty was beginning to join together, and everybody came and called and invited us for dinner.
Yeah.
And so the chairman of the French department, who was a darling, wore a goatee, very distinguished man, Landon McClintock, they invited us for dinner when we came back from Maine the first dinner we had. And the music department, chairman's wife, brought over things, food. Everybody was very, we were all new. Everybody was, it was all beginning to grow. And the president of the university, Herman B. Wells, is a remarkable man. He died 2 years ago. Remarkable man. And he was determined to make this university a great university. And he did. He did it. Because today it's one of the best music schools in the country. It's an outstanding place today. And I remember after we'd been there, and the kids, and at that point, Jim was doing a great job. He had the department join with the art department and the archaeology department and the anthropology department, so that the department was growing. It's exactly what Herman Wells wanted. It was magnificent, and we all mingled. It didn't matter who they were, mathematicians or what, but very much a family.
So it sounded like it was the same kind of a community feel that you had at Princeton.
Exactly, and that's what Herman did. He brought in all these Ivy Leaguers. Jerry Eltz went to Wisconsin, but in our this was happening to all the Midwest universities, Michigan, they all grew. But what he did in us at Indiana, we had expatriates like Paul Netto, Václav Beneš, the Czechoslovakian prime minister. They all came, and it became a very sophisticated, wonderful university, which it is today. Wonderful.
And very diverse,
Oh
sounds
my,
like.
yeah. It's just great. It's just absolute. It's a pleasure to be on. And the campus is, of course, there's plenty of land, and it's a beautiful campus. And southern Indiana is absolutely magnificent.
I've never been
It's
there.
very, very pretty. But I wasn't happy. It took me a while to calm down. It did.
Did did your life focus around your family more or less than your friends?
The first years we were there, the kids were little, and so those of us with small children bonded together. We had things we did together. I never played bridge because I wasn't a bridge player. Jim never really wanted to play. Mainly because our parents had, and they drove us crazy. We didn't want to have anything to do with it, because they were always correcting us, you know. That was absolutely true,
Yeah.
so we never bothered with bridge. But we got involved with the mixing of the faculties, and it was a very social climate.
At this point, what were your contacts with your family back in Providence? I mean, did you write a lot, or
We
what?
wrote a lot, and they all came to see us. Mother Pratt came on the train, and she had a lovely time. We had her with us for a couple of weeks.
Now, what about Uncle Francis and your...
Dad came all the time.
Oh, he did.
Oh, well, Mother came back, and they started their life together,
Mm-hmm.
and they were doing fine. And you know how they like to drive and go places all the time.
Mm.
So he and Mother took a trip to the West. They went down to Texas and called on this Ford that I want to find
Yes.
out about. And then they came.
Was he working at the, still? Was
No,
your father
he
working?
retired.
Oh, at this point he had retired.
Yeah. I think they had retired. He must have. How could he have done it?
Yeah.
It had to be Anne. I'm not quite sure. But they came. They spent 2 weeks with us. They had a wonderful time.
Mm-hmm.
We put picnics out to Brown County, and we did all these things around Indiana. And they had a wonderful time. And Mother was fine. She had put on an awful lot of weight. I guess it was her pleasure to eat after she was in that hospital for so long. But she was wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
Happy with it. Loved our place. Really had a wonderful time.
Did you have any contact with my grandmother, Annie?
They never
Annie?
came out. I did go. I went to Needham and had a lovely visit with her. I can't remember what year that was, Anne.
Mm.
But they hadn't gone to Ashway at all, and they didn't leave for a lot until sometime after that. But we were in contact
Yes,
all
we were.
the time. Oh yeah, we wrote back and forth a lot.
Mm-hmm.
We did a lot of letter writing,
Mm-hmm.
as they don't do today.
No, it's all email today.
But we did do a lot of
Yeah.
letter writing, and kept in contact with all of them.
Mm-hmm.
And of course I was in contact with my mother and father all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And Jim's mother, we brought her out there to spend a couple of weeks when Debbie was born,
Mm.
because she wanted to see Debbie. So, you know, it was a very happy, good time of life for both of us. And then because Jim did so much to the department, he made it a big department. They got involved with archaeology, they got involved with the art, we got involved with classical art and shows at the Museum of the Greek stuff. And with the anthropology and linguistics, because they got linguistics involved with the Greek language, and, you know, it all ties in together. So he got one of the outstanding linguists of the country, Pratt, to come from Columbia. And we had Easterners coming in, we had Europeans coming in. So it became very interesting. It was a very, very rich
Just
time.
intellectually stimulating
Fabulous, absolutely.
life. Yeah.
Very.
Yeah.
And you know, there were times when we had cocktail parties were everywhere.
Did you actually have them at your home?
Oh yes.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. They
That's
were
why you're so good at entertaining. I mean, I was so impressed when I was here at the reunion a few years ago. I mean,
Well, it was our life.
yeah.
It was our life. We had many, many receptions, and it was just part of our life. Martha hates it. This day she doesn't want parties. She hated it because she was always there as a little girl, and of course she hated it. Now, on the other hand, Debbie ate it up.
You're very different.
How do you explain it?
No.
And David hated it. Oh, you're never home. It's always going somewhere. Or you're always having somebody in. Well, it was true. But Jim was, was hiring, and there were people to be interviewed. And we had...
And you didn't mind entertaining, right? I mean,
well,
that
there
was...
were times when I got a little tired
Oh,
of
all
it.
right. That's kind of good to hear.
But I worked out a routine.
Yeah.
And
Did you have people staying in, overnight?
Well, there were a few times. We had the American Philological Society at the university, which is a big language society, and Jim was president of Classical League or something. So we had to have a big do at the university. And most of it we did outside of the house. Although Mike and Virginia Oates stayed with us because they were so close friends in our house. And they were there for the weekend. But the parties, I think we had one party for that. We also had a couple of big parties for
Did you have to pay for all of this yourself?
Yeah.
When you did that?
No, we had, I think for the archaeological ones we had money. But we had the archaeologists from Greece, Minanos, who uncovered Mycenae, and his wife were with us. We did not put them up. We put them in a hotel. But we had a huge party for that. And that, I remember that was, I was working at that point
Oh, no.
at the library.
Oh.
And I,
This was after Debbie was
after Debbie
was born.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, you did go back to
When-
work. At
when
what
De-
point did you do that?
When Debbie was about 7 or 8, I think, I was, we were out in these factory friends. I said, what am I going to do? Debbie's going to be going to school, and there I'll be. And that's when George said, well, go see Margaret Russell. And so at that point, Margaret said, you don't have to do shoving books over desks.
Yeah.
So she said, take some courses at library school and see what you really want to do. I said, it's 20 years since I've taken courses. Oh, go ahead and do it. So I did, and I signed in the fall.
Did you immediately feel like you were back doing something that you loved, or did that take a while to kind of...
Well, I had to get myself into doing homework.
And having children and bringing up your...
Debbie was the only one home at that point. I mean, the other kids were gone.
Oh, I see. Oh, yeah.
David was off in the Navy, and Martha was married.
So Debbie probably didn't really start getting to know her brother and sister
She doesn't know David really at all. She knows Martha better. Because Martha kind of mothered her through. Martha was Debbie's babysitter.
Okay.
She was,
Yeah,
truly.
yeah.
But Debbie and David are not a bit close.
No,
Not a bit.
they haven't had a chance to really...
No. And David is not happy with Debbie. He thinks they have too much money and they don't use it right. He is the product of depression. Debbie is the product of today, which is not depression, but throw it away money. I mean, it's true.
Yeah.
So the two of them don't click. They're getting better. They're getting better because their mother insists upon them understanding. But that's okay. I mean, that's natural. And in fact, when we had Debbie, all my friends called me, what? Oh, isn't it too bad? Well, they all thought it was a mistake. And I just now thought that. It's not a mistake. I wanted this child. We decided we needed another child. Well, you're too old.
How old were you?
38. They were running my life.
did you get any, what kind of comments did you get from your family back in, New England? About,
Not much. They probably held their tongues.
oh, okay.
I think they probably didn't want to.
From what I hear, when Mother was pregnant with Ruth, Grandma, I think, didn't think that was
A good idea.
Yeah, I've heard that she didn't think very well of it.
Well, whether they didn't think so or not, they never
They
said anything. And of course, they adored Debbie when she was
Yes.
born. Oh my word! Jim's mother came and she just couldn't leave the child alone. It was, and my mother the same way. It was wonderful.
Yeah.
New
So
baby.
Debbie really did get spoiled in a lot
She
of
is
ways.
spoiled. She is really spoiled. She knows it. She knows she's spoiled.
Yeah.
But anyway, we managed fine. Debbie, I had Debbie in nursery school for a little while in the mornings.
Mhm.
And then, when I went back to school, she was about maybe 5 or 6. I can't remember exactly. But she was in nursery school. She was fine.
Mhm.
And I worked it so that when I arranged her piano lessons and all that stuff, taking care of her in between classes, and it went fine. It was just fine.
Mhm.
So I worked away at this studying again and took the degree. And then
Is this when you got your master's?
my master's.
Your master's.
I didn't
right.
go on to PhD. I could have.
Yeah, I was going to say, you could.
Not. And I really trained to be a children's librarian,
Mhm.
which was natural because I'd been doing children's things for a long
Now,
time.
how long did it take to get your master's, and then did you get a job?
Well,
right
it
after
took
that?
me 2 years. It took me longer than it would anybody else because I only did a little bit at a time. But then I got my degree. 1959, I think. And we were here for the summer. And I got a call from the dean of faculties, who was then Ralph Collins, on the phone. We were eating lunch out here, and the phone rang. And it was Ralph. And he said, Barry, Herman wants to know if you'll take over handling the residence halls. He has a dream of trying to make them like Oxford. Would you consider it? I said, oh, come on, Ralph. I trained to be a children's librarian. All right, but Herman's got this idea. He's got Mrs. Hamilton in there, in Wilkie Ford, trying to teach these bean blossom kids what fork to use. So she's trying to teach them etiquette. And the other thing he wants is somebody handling little libraries where they'll have something beside the local bean blossom newspaper. He wants them to know there is a world outside. And he has put aside money to do libraries in each hall. I said, Ralph, I'm not sure that oh, yes, you can. So he said, you just have a look at it when you come back. We'll put it on hold. So when we were back in early September, at these things with the librarian, the assistant librarian, Cecil Bird, who was just dear. We went from building to building, the ones that had already been built, and got out into the library, or the so-called reading room, in one of the dorms. And he stood there and said, now look here, just look over here, look at this campus. Herman is thinking he's going to have an Oxford. Come on, you can do it. So I took it.
Oh, you did, right now.
Right then and there. And
So you built up all
it
these.
was a challenge, I tell you what.
So that was years in the making. I mean, was it? Or how long did you work on these libraries and...
I worked until Jim retired. I didn't. I was not retired. I could have gone on and made a lot of money, but I didn't make a lot of money. I was a faculty wife doing a job almost gratis. My salary was $2,000.
Oh my goodness.
It's ridiculous. But the year I retired, because equal employment and feminine equalization,
Yes.
it went to $13,000. That's the last year I worked. And of course, if I had continued, now it would be like 80,000.
Yes,
You know.
yes, yeah.
But it's okay. I mean, I wasn't doing it for money anyway. I was really doing it for something to do. So I said, okay, if you think I can, I'll try it. So we built Foster, Briscoe, we built 3 libraries, 3 new dormitories in a residence hall. They didn't call them dormitories, residence hall, in the time that I was working. And so why
was there need to develop the libraries in
each dorm?
Each dorm, yeah. What was the purpose of that?
Because Mr. Wells wanted them to learn the word.
Because there was obviously a main library in
And there's
in
an
the
undergraduate library.
Yeah.
There's a main library and an undergraduate library. But he wanted to be like
in the
Harvard.
in the living quarters. It would be
like
part
Harvard.
of their...
You know, Harvard has a house library.
Uh-huh.
And like the
I see.
Oxford, he was determined to make this university a very special university. He did it. So when I took the job, the head librarian of the whole system said, Bob, I want you to go to look at the libraries in Europe. So I was sent to Oxford.
They sent you.
And then they sent me to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton. And I used their base library lists. This was the purpose. So there was a list called Choice. It was a big job. So I got hold of all these selective lists, learned where to select, how to do it from these various sources, and went to work. And I ended up with a secretary and a cataloger and 55...
And you loved it, too.
I loved
yeah.
it. And 55 undergraduates. And eventually, before I left, I went to the chancellor and got 12 graduate assistants to be head librarians and handle the undergraduates. Wrote a big manual, which is still in existence. And it's, you know...
You felt so wonderful, satisfying, and your life purpose was...
It was really wonderful. I had a very good time at it. And even so, in 1960, we went to Greece, and I was really concerned about my libraries, because I was going to be leaving. But by that time, my staff was pretty good. I had a wonderful secretary, just wonderful. And my cataloger, Villa Crow, took over. And they did fine. They did fine.
That's the sign of a good director.
So then when I got back, everything was going very smoothly. And I would have kept on if Jim hadn't wanted to retire. But I knew he wanted to write that book. And I knew he had to have that out of his system. So I said, okay. And I retired. I resigned, rather.
But you stayed living...
No, we went to Florida.
Oh, that's when you went to Florida.
That's why we went.
Oh,
That's when we went to Florida. Jim retired at 65. He didn't go to 70. Because he wanted to write his Seneca book. And he knew if he didn't do it, he'd never get it done.
Now, just briefly tell me what the book was focused on.
Seneca, Latin author Seneca.
Seneca.
And he's the topmost expert on Seneca.
Mhm.
And he had to get it out of his system. He had to
Mhm.
get it in writing. And I knew that was
Mhm.
important
Mhm.
to him. So we said, okay. So the libraries were turned over to Villa, and it's going.
Mhm.
It's still going.
Still got
Only as a new head of it now.
Mhm.
And I went back to Bloomington this last fall. Went back to Bloomington twice. They had a wonderful memorial tribute to Jim in the spring, in April, and it was just beautiful. And 200 of the faculty there. It was just wonderful. And so at that time, one of the residence hall men came in to it, and mainly to see me, and said, I want you to come and have a look at your libraries. And it was very satisfying.
Mhm.
And he said, and you know what? You've got a children's library in the graduate school.
Oh,
So you can be happy about that.
Yeah.
And it was
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
But then I went back to Florida, and several of my friends were having a show. They were having a Greek show of Greek artifacts in the museum. And several of my friends called and said, come on up, we you know, you want to see this. So I went back in the spring, just this year, and had a look at the museum and talked to the head of the library, and
Yeah.
Pat, my good friend, one good friend, we went, she called and said, come on, you better go to Trinity, that's a church, and see what's going on there. I'll pick you up at 8 o'clock and go to the early service. So we went to the, Lisa came and took me to the early service, and then after it, took me to breakfast at the Marriott downtown new hotel with several of her close friends. Two of them I'd known before. One began to talk about the graduate fellowships at the libraries in the little residence hall. And I picked up and said, oh, well, she said, there are 12 of us and we're having a wonderful time with those libraries. I said, oh, well, that's nice. I'm glad they're going well, and told her that I was the one that got them in. It was fun.
Yeah.
And Lise was laughing. She said, oh, you didn't know. You didn't know how we put those libraries together. But it was very satisfying, and it really was. And Jim was so pleased that I hadn't done that. He was very happy about it. So we both had a good experience
Mhm.
in Indiana, and very happy time. Wonderful. But it's changing.
Mm.
I sat on the bench in the Union Building waiting for the bus to take me back to the plane. And the kids are so sloppy. Jeans that are all gross. They look terrible. And I thought, what? What's going to happen to us if the kids aren't going to straighten up? And that didn't make me feel very good.
Yeah. So that's hard, it must be hard for you to see that. I mean, that's going on all over
I know,
the country.
but
So.
we've been out for a while, and then to go back and see. Now the campus was beautiful
Mhm.
and well kept, but the kids were just disgusting. And I don't know, I feel very uneasy about the world today.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know what's going to happen to us all. So anyway, those years were very nice and really happy ones.
Talking about Florida a little bit. Now I know that your dad used to go down to Florida in the winter. Did he go down?
He went down because Aunt Annie and Uncle Raymond and Aunt Edith
Yeah.
and Uncle Arthur were in St. Petersburg. And so he went down to visit with them.
Because I have photos.
After Mother died. It was after Mother.
Yes, because was it Rosalie?
he met Rosalie when he was down
Down
there.
there, because I have pictures of them, and I was wondering about that time period. So your mother died in when? Well,
1959, I
all
think.
right. So this was probably in the 60s. Now, so that, like Arthur and your Aunt Annie, my grandmother, they would, at that point, they were going down every winter?
Yes, they were going down, and they just loved it.
Mm-hmm.
And they were having a ball. They loved it. They went to all the baseball games, and they drove all over Florida. Went down to Marathon and Key West. And they had a wonderful time. Went to the Cypress Gardens, seeing all the water skiing. Dad was just in seventh heaven down there.
Yeah. Did you ever join them down there at all?
Not
at that
when
point?
they were there.
No.
What we did in time, what happened in time was, well, your mother and Aunt Edith were really upset because he met Rosalie, and I don't know how he met Rosalie. I can't tell you that. But your parents and Aunt Edith and Uncle Arthur were they were furious because she just grabbed hold of him.
Yeah, yeah.
And he was a weak man. Dad was always a weak man. And he succumbed.
No, they were married then.
No.
No, they weren't.
Not married.
Oh, I didn't know whether they had ever
No,
got
they
married.
were not married.
Okay.
But what happened was that she was putting him up in the house on the back porch, not much. And so it turned into, of course he'd marry her. So they came home to Greenville, to Sackett Street, and had Dick prepare for a wedding in Greenville. And they were married there in Greenville.
Oh, they were? Oh, okay. That's okay. Okay, and then where did they live? They lived right in...
Then he lived in her house.
Yeah.
They emptied Sackett Street out. I'd put it up for sale, I guess.
Okay.
And I've got...
And so he moved down...
He moved down with Rosalie.
All right.
And I've got all Mother's pots and pans here. You got all the kitchen stuff here. Every bit of it. I have, in Florida, I have a little spoon table that was Mother's. But I went to Sackett Street and moved out several pieces of furniture that were precious. I have a little Victorian chair that was my grandmother's that was in our house up in the attic. And I brought, I got the china. I got her best hat, my Nana's, my grandma's.
So you have that now?
Martha's got it stored in her attic. But I wanted the kids to have it. I don't care which one gets it.
Yeah, you just
I
wanted
wanted
it
to
in
keep
the
it in the
family.
family. And whether Martha gives it to Todd's wife or what, but it has to stay in the family.
Mm-hmm.
So she's storing it for me,
Yeah.
bless her heart.
Yeah.
I also moved from the stuff we had. I don't know how we got this, but I moved. Oh, I know. We also had to do the same thing with Jim's mother. But what else do I have of Nana's and Mother's?
And when you say Sackett Street, this was, you said Greenville? Would they live, was that...
No, Dick was in
Greenville.
Greenville.
But where was Sackett Street? When you
Where
talk-
Mother and Father lived.
But where was that?
Providence.
Right
Well,
in...
Elmwood.
Oh, okay.
It was right close to, close to Broad Street, between Broad Street and Elmwood Avenue.
Okay.
It's one of cross
All right,
streets.
because when I go into Providence now, I might try and find...
It's all black now,
Yeah.
all black. All that area is black,
Mhm.
all Asian, gone.
Yes.
But of course, when we were young, it was a very nice neighborhood. It was a very,
Mhm.
very upscale neighborhood, very nice. But that's no longer true. It's gone. But what in Sackett Street, when Mother died, Dad said, come and take out what you'd like to have. I really wanted Mother's diamond, but Hope got it.
Oh, really?
And I'm very angry because she hated my mother.
Oh, dear. I wouldn't think she'd even want it.
No, I know, but she's got it. Doesn't matter. I had a beautiful diamond anyway.
I wanna share a little bit. I was given Grandma's diamond.
Lovely.
All right, but now where he is Michael has given it to Louise as her engagement ring. I put a lot of thought into this, and he asked me, and so now it is on her hand. I was thinking, now she's from England, it's just kind of a very appropriate.
Right.
I mean, and if they're not going to have children, so it will be, she will put in her will that it be given to Lee eventually. So it's not. It's gonna stay in the family.
Well, this is interesting. That is Martha Boulevard's.
Oh, it is.
And your mother gave that to me when I was 16.
Is that right?
That's right. And
She
gave it to me. I don't know why. Annie gave me that ring.
Oh, Barbara.
And in Grandpa's diary, he writes in 1906 when they went back to England, he bought Martha Boulevard that ring.
Oh, isn't that wonderful? Now that looks like a ruby.
No, I think it's garnet. I don't
garnet.
think it's ruby.
Okay.
But isn't it lovely?
It is. It's lovely.
So that's very precious.
Yes.
And she gave me that when I graduated from high school.
Okay.
I just want you to have it.
Oh, isn't that wonderful?
Yeah. So that was lovely.
Yeah.
So
have you worn it ever since?
Ever since. Ever since. I've worn it ever since I was 16.
Yeah.
I've loved it.
Yeah.
And I have rings, I have a lovely ring from Greece. I have, some very pretty rings. But I hardly ever wear them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Jim bought my diamond out of his fellowship money. And I said, what are you going to eat? Oh, I'll eat the stuff at the graduate school. He said, never mind. He bought it. And it's lovely. And this is an anniversary ring.
Oh. Which anniversary is that?
I think it was the 25th. I can't remember quite, but it was one of the anniversary.
Beautiful.
Yeah. So, I'm not much for jewelry anyway.
Yeah, I'm not either, but I wore that diamond until Louise,
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what I'm going to do here, because I've got two girls.
Yeah.
And, I don't know. Nothing, they really aren't, much on a lot of jewelry anyway. You don't know.
But the meaning behind certain pieces, I don't wear very much. Obviously, I don't wear a lot of jewelry. I didn't even want a diamond when I was engaged, but Tom insisted that I have something. So
that's a beauty.
This is a star ruby.
Yeah,
yeah.
a beauty.
So,
but I think what I'll probably do is get this one to Susan, my granddaughter, one of the granddaughters. I don't know which one yet. And as far as the diamonds are concerned, I'll let the girls take their fight about themselves. Neither one of them really. They don't have any real. They're wonderful. They're not greedy.
Yeah.
It's nice. It's really nice. So anyway, that's the history of this ring, and this is very precious.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah. And it's pretty, and it's very British.
Very.
You see them all over Britain. My good friend Elizabeth Melville, with whom I'm still in contact, has one, and she's alive. Eugene died before Jim, but we are still very much in contact. And I, with their children, both Richard, the oldest, is in contact with David all the time because they played together as kids. at age 7, So that's a meaningful relationship. And so when David is in England, which he is frequently, they always get together and have a wonderful time. And the relationship gets stronger even as time goes on. And last year, Debbie took me to London. Well, we went together to London on my 86th birthday, and Peter, bless his heart, rented a car and took me up to Aldeburgh, where I had lunch with Elizabeth on Main Street in Aldeburgh, which is just charming. And then Peter and Susan very sweetly took leave and left us alone in her apartment while they went off bird watching on the coast for the whole afternoon. And came back. We had high tea together. And then we went with Liz over to the Maltings, which is the Benjamin